4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Heather.
Hey.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome back, everyone, to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, where we have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. So thank you so much, Heather, for joining us today. We appreciate that.
Cheers.
Even though you will not be getting drunk with us, we still appreciate you taking the time.
No, not right now.
Yeah, it's only 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock there, but I mean, hey, you know, what you should have done is you should have said, hey, Travis, why don't you drink while watching the show? I'll drink while on the show. And then after, we can have some dreaming and scheming time where we could brainstorm about the future. I mean, that's what Evan and I do.
That would have been fun.
It's amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
Travis is flying a plane right now, so him drinking wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah,
That's
probably
a
not.
great idea.
No.
Well, for those of you that do not recognize Heather, Heather Bargender is from Sky Heating and Air. She is the CFO working with Travis Smith there. We had Travis on a few months ago, which was a fantastic episode. And Heather and I connected actually in Vegas at the 10X event with Victor's event that he ran there. And we stood there and talked, gosh, must have been like 20, 30 minutes just straight. And Heather, as she was saying earlier, when she drinks, she tends to ramble on and just talk the whole time. And it was amazing. I absorbed so much knowledge in that 20 minutes. It was fantastic. I was like, I need to have you on our show. And she's like, okay, let's do it. And we scheduled it and we got it all set up. So it was fantastic. And I'm very grateful that you took the time to join us today. But if you do not know Heather, she's actually been in the trades for a long time. Started working with a steel company, helping them grow on the accounting side before navigating that sale. She had a brief stint in the residential building market. She started her own accounting business, helping the trades out, and then interviewed for a job with Sky Heating and was actually going to turn it down. She was telling us just before this, before Travis convinced her to come work with her, and is now even consulting as well. But I did reach out to a mutual friend, Stacy Four, to see what she had to say about Heather. And she said Heather is relentless in her passion for humans. She is sharing her talents with others. She not only is fierce, smart, and a pro, she is kind, compassionate, and always thinks of others. She is endlessly funny and a true badass for all the people in the trades, and a perfect example of what a true leader of the women in the trades is. So thank you so much, Stacy, for sharing that. And that is
Thank
who
you,
our guest is
Stacy.
today.
Stacy's a good friend of mine.
She is an incredible human.
She is incredible. I know she's giving me all this credit, but I could say all the same things about her. She's absolutely phenomenal. Her and Mike. I love them both.
Absolutely.
Just great, genuine human beings.
Absolutely. But today's all about you, Heather. So thank you so much for joining us and taking the time today.
Thank you for having me on the show.
No, you're welcome. So why don't you start kind of at the beginning, at least, and you can kind of shorten up the pre Sky Heating part if you want to, or you can go deep into it. We'll leave that up to you, but we'd love to hear how you got to where you're at now and some of the backstory into even working with Travis there at Sky Heating.
Okay. Sure. Well, when I was in college, there was a remodel going on. General contractor was on remodeling one of the college dorm rooms, and I needed a job because you guys have been to college and it's expensive and I was poor. So I started working for that general contractor while I was still in college, and had a boss there that told me that women were never going to be respected in the trades. I wanted to grow with the company, but this was 23 years ago, and that wasn't a time where it was easy to get very far as a female in the construction industry. But that didn't stop me. Like Thaddeus posted, I'm just like, hold my beer, watch me. And so I left that company. I bit off way more than I could chew because I was still in college, and took a position with a design build structural steel company. And when I was working there, I finished college and grew at that company. It was a big a big step for me. I really did bite off more than I could chew with that move, but I stuck it out for almost 7 years, and then the company was going through a sale. So I left and went into the residential market at the worst possible time in 2007. And so that lasted about a year until all the builders went out of business, at least here on the West Coast. And I worked for a drywall company after that for a few years. And then my son needed some additional time. He had some learning disabilities, and so I needed more flexibility. And so that's when I started Bottom Line Accounting Services, that was my accounting company that was trade-based, to help trade-based companies realize what they didn't know and streamline their processes and procedures, and teaching them, why they weren't profitable and how to be profitable. So then, like I was telling you guys before the show started, my husband asked me to just get one job because I am so passionate about the trades. I could never turn somebody down and tell them I wouldn't help. And so I nonchalantly just kind of interviewed with Travis and called him a week later. And I was like, I don't know if you were going to hire me, but I'm not fucking working for you for that price. And he goes, no, I was. He says, I was going to hire you. He goes, but I know I need to pay you more. And so the whole interview with him that day was kind of funny because he was asking me questions he found on the internet.
Oh no.
Truly. Like questions that if you don't know the answer to, you shouldn't even be working as a bookkeeper. Like the first question he asked me is, what's the difference between cash and accrual accounting? Well, I found out later that of everyone that he interviewed, I was the only one who knew the answer. So the interview kind of flipped at that point, and I started asking him questions, and we joke about it today because he's like, you kind of interviewed me, and I'm like, well, I wanted to know who I was going to come work for.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't like the company, I was going to be like, no, I'm not even going to consider it. And so we came to a mutual agreement, and I started working for him, and thought I'd probably just be on for 6 months or so, and he thought the same. And he and I just have this really fantastic working relationship, and he's kind of the epitome of anybody that I would ever want to partner with or continue working for. So I kept my company open for 2 more years, and then I shut it down when I realized I wasn't leaving Sky. And then a year after that, he said, you should start consulting. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I just shut my business down. I kept it open for 2 years. I paid my professional liability insurance for 2 more years. And I shut it down, and then now you want me to start it up again. So
Jeez.
Here we are.
Great timing, Travis. Great timing, bud. That's awesome.
He's really good with timing.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and yeah, something that I think is really incredible about what it is that you do, especially on the consulting side and helping others. Like, you look at what you've done for Sky and what you've created there in terms of financial stability for the company. Most people don't know where they're at. I bet you 9 out of 10 owners, you could ask that question to, and they wouldn't know what it is, right? And yet they're asking that of their bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when it comes to one of the biggest challenges that I see, at least from the marketing side, working with HVAC contractors, is that they're amazing technicians, but they're not great business owners, and they don't understand all of the different aspects that come with running a business, and they don't understand what they need to have their gross profit margin be that in order to reach a certain net profit margin. They don't. They look at it as, well, when I ran a side job, I had this expense for the equipment and I sold it for this much, and the difference in between was my profit. And now they've got all these other expenses that go into it. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you see that a lot of these technicians run into when they're trying to run their business financially?
They don't know what they don't know. And they'll get a copy of QuickBooks, and QuickBooks kind of has this little tool that walks you through how to set up your business, but they're technicians. They don't have a clear understanding of a chart of accounts and why certain things are part of gross profit and certain things are part of your general and administrative, which is considered overhead. And so even when they do have a set of books, it's usually wrong. I would say 99% of the time. Yep. I've looked at hundreds of sets of financials over the last 10 years, and there's been very few that have been absolutely accurate. And so if your financials are incorrect, you might think you're making money, but you're really not. So you might think you're priced right, but you're really not. because
Right.
when you've got too many things below the line, as we call it, you think your gross profit margin is fantastic, but when you've got consumer financing fees and overhead, and that's running, at a couple $100,000, depending on your size and how much financing that you do, you think your gross profit's great, and it's really not. And, I hear these guys all the time talking about, oh, double-digit net profit. Most of the people saying that haven't factored in everything like amortization and depreciation and proper pricing and knowing how to price themselves right. So these contractors go more off of what we would consider a T&M basis, time and materials, instead of actually pricing themselves, factoring in their break even, which is taking into account their overhead. And so one exercise that we do with our employees is we call it one chuck in a truck exercise. And we have the employees stand in our training room, and they will take turns. We put them in groups, and they take turns telling us how much what things are factored in. If they wanted to leave the company today, what are they going to have to pay for? And then they take turns going around, and then we point out, it's not just, hey, I bought a truck, I'm working out of my garage, I can buy a piece of equipment for this, I'm going to bill this hourly rate, and I'm going to be profitable. They don't always understand that you've got, rent and utilities and insurance and office supplies, which is not a huge expense, but it's all these things that are factored into running a business, and they just don't know.
Yep.
So it's a great exercise that we go through with our employees. And I also think it's really important that they understand why we price ourselves the way they do, or the way that we do, so that they have the buy-in to actually be able to take it to the customer and sell it, believing in that price. So that's why we're very kind of an open book at Sky on how we price ourselves, so that the guys understand, like, we're not gouging the customer. This is what we have to do to make money.
That's huge in terms of conviction. Like, if you don't believe in what it is you're selling, let alone the price you're quoting it for, you're never going to make a sale, because the customers can smell that, right? It's the easiest thing to read through when you don't believe in the product you're selling for the price you're selling it for.
Right. And if you don't have buy-in from your employees, then you have somebody who's coming to work for your company for a paycheck and not for the company, and isn't going to be an effective member of your team. They're not going to want to go out there and take care of that customer holistically. They're just going to want to go out and sell something or not, and just collect their paycheck at the end of the week.
Yep. But doing that, though, you buy them into the overall process of the entire organization. Itself. Like, I remember one of my other positions I was in before was in the passenger elevator industry, and I always got to clarify why I say passenger elevator industry is because, well, in Canada, grain elevators, right? That's what we think. But when I was in the role, when we were building out our quote sheets, it was, you look at the bottom, you're like, okay, 55% was the markup on that, and like you're looking at that. But then so I was as one of my first bigger jobs, and I'm like, why are you 55%? Shouldn't you be batting like 15-20%? But then they actually went back and explained everything and showed how everything works as the organization. Okay, well, what you're selling is high margins, but the other stuff that we sell is actually low margin. So when we blend it all together, now here's where our organization sits as a whole, and it gives better conviction now, because you can see the transparency behind it, which is a big thing. I did want to say, you talked about pricing.
Absolutely.
No, go ahead. I think there's a lag. It might be a lag.
Pricing?
So, I'm just gonna say, when you talk
there
about,
is a little bit of a lag, and I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. So, that's the part of the show, and that's the part of going live, is that it is imperfect, and we love it.
We'll blame Travis for it.
That's okay.
Yeah, Travis, get better Wi-Fi. He'll listen to this after because he's flying. So, one of the things that you had mentioned, you talked about, pricing yourself right and making sure that you have that dialed in from the get-go. So when you're consulting and you're doing that, what are some things that you look at in order to be able to help a contractor or a business price themselves right?
Well, they need to make sure that their chart of accounts is set up appropriately, so that they're actually capturing all of their gross profit margin above the line, and not having some of that cost of goods sold showing up below the line, because that's kind of where it starts. But then the other things that you need to take into consideration is not just, what your overhead is as a percentage, but also your efficiency. So if you've got a guy who isn't efficient, then and you're pricing yourself a certain way for a certain efficiency, then you're going to start losing money there. Not huge dollars, but it still is one of those outside factors that I don't think that that contractors often take into consideration, because that efficiency rating is how you determine how many man days a job is going to take.
Mm-hmm. And so, because I had a call with a guy out and he's just north of Boston, the friend that I met in Vegas, actually. But we talked a lot about that efficiency and how he was having guys running to Home Depot or running to Lowe's to go pick up extra parts because they didn't have the proper equipment and stock in the truck, which common knowledge, right? You're doing this job, you need this stock, go do the job. What sort of factors do you look into when measuring efficiency within Sky?
Those same things as well. We have our trucks are fully stocked. We have a couple of warehouse guys that make sure that the inventory is, accounted for, that we know what we have. We don't have our guys making tons of trips to Home Depot and things like that. So wherever we see a gap, we try and come up with a solution to fix the gap. Sometimes let me go back to this summer. We were really so busy this summer that sometimes a 2-man day job we could get done in a day if we sent a guy with a helper. So then you've got a lesser expensive guy going out there to help and also learning at the same time. So that helps with the efficiency too, and the capacity planning. We had a huge capacity issue this summer because we had one of the hottest the hottest summer that we've ever had in the history of Oregon.
Well, let's talk about that part of things, right? Because I know a lot of people, and I mean, one could say, well, it's just going to get hotter, blah blah blah. We don't need to go down the rabbit hole of climate change and have that conversation, but it could potentially happen again,
No,
right?
I don't want to have that conversation,
right?
Yeah.
But let's just play pretend and it happens again. Okay, now you've went through this, you've taken some learning experiences to be able to manage the capacity. So what are some things that you learned from going through that?
It's tough. Every contractor has this problem. We don't have enough guys. We've been slowly growing our team. We doubled the size of our team this year, but if we have an ongoing ad, if we can't hire for that position, then we have to figure out how to work with what we have. So we built a training room and started training guys from the ground up. And so one way that we handled that this summer was we started bringing in beginning maintenance tech type people so that we didn't have our seasoned service technicians running maintenance calls. And we don't typically do a lot of maintenance in the summer, but what happened was, once these maintenance guys got in and were able to start learning on the live equipment that we have in our training room, we could turn them loose. And then our service techs, we could pull into install if we really needed to. So it's just moving people around.
Managing that dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember I had listened to you on Victor's podcast. And that was right around when, just after COVID had happened and shit hit the fan. I was just
gonna say that was like March after COVID.
Yeah. So it was crazy time. Shit was happening. But one of the things that came out this summer, we look at lack of talent, lack of employees being able to put out the equipment, and lack of equipment. Last year, it was COVID happening and uncertainty around the financials with that. What are some things that you learned going through both of those processes in terms of the financial aspect of running the business to better shield and protect yourself for when shit hits the fan and uncertainty happens?
Making sure that you have money in the bank. I mean, we were very lucky when COVID hit that we were a healthy company and we could weather that storm. Getting the equipment supply chain shortage didn't start until the end of last year. I mean, it kind of started trickling, at the end of summer of 2020, but it wasn't until the fall that we were like, crap, we got to find equipment or we're going to be fucking screwed. So that was really stressful. And there's not really anything that any of us can do about that other than we had really strong relationships with our suppliers. So we were able to use that to our advantage. And we have a lot of buying power because of how the volume of equipment that we run through our shop. But the beginning of the pandemic was scary as hell. And I think I talked about that on Victor's podcast. I mean, one of the worst days of my life was having to lay off pretty much most of my staff because we just didn't know what was happening back at the beginning in March. And actually Travis and I were in Louisiana the day that the governor shut our state down. And so that was scary for our employees because they're like, what the hell's happening? And this is ridiculous. Like, we're stuck on the other side of the country and we weren't sure if we were even going to be able to go home. And then, we have our whole, staff wondering, well, what do we do now? And then no one wanted us in their homes after that, so it was tough. It was scary. And we did bring all of our employees back exactly a month later. We applied for the PPP loan. We were one of the first people to do that. And I will say to anybody that's listening, we bank with a commercial bank. We don't bank with a Wells Fargo or a Chase or, what I consider a retail bank that mainly markets to consumers, not to businesses. And working with a commercial bank gave us a lot more advantage. And we were able to get that PPP loan a lot faster than a lot of other companies were.
Interesting.
So one mistake that we did make in COVID is because we've never, had to lay off our entire staff like that. Well, we've never been through a pandemic, is we were afraid to hire because we didn't know the direction that the market was going to go. If people were going to, how long was the pandemic going to last? How long was it going to be before there was a vaccine? How long was it going to be before people wanted us back in their homes? And the last thing we wanted to do was overhire and have to lay off again. So that kind of bit us in the ass because we had a capacity problem most of 2020. And then when we did business planning in October of 2020, we were like, oh shit, we fucked up because we were busy. I mean, once people kind of got over the initial scare of COVID, we stayed busy, but we had that instilled fear of if we hire too many, we don't want to lay them off again. I mean, that was a horrible day. I remember our operations manager and Travis and I on the phone at 11 o'clock at night going, what the hell are we going to do? Like, we have to let these people go because we don't know how long this is going to last. Thankfully, it was short-lived and we pivot quickly. And that's one thing I love about Sky and our entire staff here is we can pivot quickly. We have set ourselves up to be able to make quick and fast decisions and change things to keep the business moving forward.
Well, and that's something that we've seen. Like, we've had Ish on the podcast, we've had Victor on the podcast, other top performers, Travis, Peter and Alicia. Every top performer we've had on the podcast that's doing, call it 8 million or north in revenue, that is a common trait among all of them, is the ability to adjust on the fly, make a quick decision, move forward, and then adjust. They're not trying to win the game 3-0 by only making 3 right decisions and no wrong ones, right? They're trying to win the game 116 to 92. And at the end of the day, they're going to win big because of that fact. It's constant adjusting and reduce. Yeah, you want to limit the risk on any of those decisions, but at the same time, you can also pivot really quickly and adjust and move in different directions. Another thing that I wanted to point out as well, which is, I mean, COVID was a massive eye opener for a lot of people. For me, the thing that it was a reminder of was the old Warren Buffett quote of be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. If you shut off the TV and ignored all of that bullshit that was on the news, you were able to prosper greatly throughout that time. Right. And to step back and actually look at it. And it's easy to do now, right? For us to think about, well, they're shutting down businesses. They're forcing everyone to be at home. They're going to work from home. So naturally, as an HVAC business, we're going to be busy. Right. It's easy to think of that now.
And people are spending this more taxation on their systems. We had this meeting when COVID happened. It's like, well, if people are going to be in their homes, they're going to be, and some people are still working from home because they haven't been, brought back into an office environment situation. So with more people working from home, that's more taxation on their system. People that haven't done maintenance or don't realize that, the average system life is 12 to 15 years, at least in our market, just because we kind of are a more moderate climate. But with HVAC being so seasonally driven, we went into the summer of 2020 pretty strong.
Well, and it's the old adage of, how many sides are there to a coin? And most people say 2. And the reality is there's 3, because when you live on the edge and you're able to see both sides objectively, the fear side and the take advantage side, you can decide which one you really want to go with and which one you believe in. Right. So that's what it was. Like your story just reminded me of all of that. So that was really great. All right. Time for one of our favorite parts of the show, the random question generator. So Thaddeus, you knew it was coming. We've got 3 questions for you. So A, B, or C, which would you prefer?
A.
All right. What's your favorite room in the house and why?
My favorite in my personal house?
Yes.
Probably my kitchen. I love being in my kitchen because that seems to be where everyone gathers when we have company over, and it just is the place where, you know, we just spend the most time. And I just remodeled it, so I love it.
Well, they do say that friends spend time in the kitchen and acquaintances go to the living room and family room. So because you're hanging out, right? Unless that's a big open concept. But I would love to see the remodel pictures though on that. And kitchens are great, you know. It's I absolutely knew that answer.
Stacy knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Stacy knows me well. And Stacy just remodeled her kitchen too.
Oh, nice. Stacy, send me a picture.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of her photos that they had. So, I mean, I went through a kitchen remodel too, and like we did some of it ourselves, and some of it we hired out. And like 3.5 months without a kitchen while you're working from home was an endeavor. I can tell you that much. So, how did you? So, were you like completely without your kitchen when you guys did your remodel?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So actually I remodeled my kitchen back in 2017, in February of 2017, but it's something that I had wanted to do for 10 years prior to that. And I could not get a contractor to show up. I could get once in a while, one would show up for a bid, but then when I would call him back, I couldn't get a contractor to, you know, actually nail down a time. And I finally did. I was super excited. It was the end of December of 2016. I was like, oh my gosh, that we're going to actually do this. And started the kitchen remodel in January of 2017. It took an entire month. And during that month, we obviously had no microwave, no stove, no nothing, and ended up having one of the worst snow and ice storms that Portland's ever seen. So we couldn't go out. They shut restaurants down because it was too icy. It was interesting. And then, you know, my contractor trying to bring in my brand new, you know, Corian countertops. And he asked me to de-ice my sidewalks so that he didn't, you know, slip and fall. And I remember okay, this is a funny story. So I remember going out and there was no de-icer anywhere because we don't get heavy, hard ice storms in Portland. It's not common. And we ended up having to go to Fred Meyer's, which is like Kroger. And we bought 15 huge boxes of Morton salt. We couldn't find de-icer.
Well, did it work?
Yeah, it did, but it was
a mess to clean
not
up, I'm
ideal.
sure.
It was, it was a mess.
Oh man.
Well,
amazing.
yeah, but hey, at least you got your kitchen, right? So I know, like when we
Yes.
went through ours, we were without our kitchen for 3 months, because we gutted it right to the studs, and we had some engineering things in that to do, and there was a couple snags in the delays. But we were smart. We actually moved our countertops into our garage, and then we had like our camping stove and like a microwave and a toaster oven in there. So we called it our kitchen all the time, but because it was great. You could sit there in the morning, you could open up the garage door and you could look out and it was nice and free flowing.
I love it.
But we had no running water, so we did our dishes, but with a 5-gallon pail, filling it up in the bathtub, and then I kept the sink in there, like part of the kitchen, then just cut off the bottom so I could actually dump the water into the sink and then drain the sink into the 5-gallon pail, take it in and dump it down the toilet. Like that was 3.5 months of doing it. Let's just say our dog decided to she got to lick a lot of plates and dishes. She was the pre-rinse cycle.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. I mean, those stories of, you know, doing remodels and kind of work on your house is just like, oh my gosh, there's always a story that goes along with it.
Yeah, and like you could hire a great contractor, or you could hire a shit contractor. Like Stacy's just said, you know, worst contractor ever, and it took him 7 months for it. But it's like, and some houses are like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and you're banging your head against the wall. You're like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
So getting back on track, unless Evan, you're going to talk about kitchen remodels as well.
No, I wasn't. I had a question, but you can ask yours, bud.
All right. So we've heard over the last, year and a half, 2 years, price increase after price increase after price increase after price increase. And we're coming up into another year, which we think that'll probably happen. So from the financial side of the business, is there a way that you can properly mitigate that so you're not going to be losing your lunch? And how do you build that into your forecasting? Or can you?
You can. I mean, you're obviously not going to be spot on because it's impossible to know what the price increase is going to be. We've had 8% price increases this year, and the only thing you can do is know that it's coming and be ready for it. And you have to adjust your pricing when you get that price increase. And a lot of mistakes that I've seen over the years is that the contractor gets the price increase, but they don't pass it on to the consumer. And then that's where they start losing revenue to, their net profit dollars as well. And their revenue may stay the same, but their cost is going up. So their gross profit margin is going down and they don't catch it fast enough. So like going back to what you were talking about, Ishmael and Victor and all these other contractors who pivot well, we pivot well. We know it's coming. We get a heads up from our distributors that it's coming, and we update our price book accordingly.
Now, would you update it the second that you know that it's happening, so you actually have higher prices right off the get-go, or would you do it right when they take effect?
Well, we're always ordering inventory in advance, and so we usually will do it a couple of weeks before.
Makes sense.
So would you place a big order to hold inventory when it was still cheaper, or would you wait?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then would you increase your prices right away as well?
Yeah. We usually do our price increase. Like we'll say, these prices are going to go into effect the day that we get the price increase, but we've updated our price book so we're not scrambling.
Right.
Makes sense. So somebody wants to buy a whole bunch of equipment all at once. What's the best way to do that?
Have cash?
Cash or just like anyone. Like, so if you're to let me ask the question a little bit more better. It's one of those days. I'm having a struggle of a day today. I've been that way all day long. So sometimes you just got to do your show and just make do. So somebody sees they're having a price increase. They want to buy a whole bunch of equipment. On their obviously cash on hand could be the easiest way to do that, or where are they pulling the money from in order to do a large purchase? And is there a certain level that you would look at in terms of like a percentage of equipment that you would buy in advance, or like how would you frame that in?
It really depends on what we think we're going to need. I mean, we're not going to go crazy town like, oh, we're having a price increase on November 1st. Let's pretend it's March of 2020 and buy all the toilet paper out of the store. We're not going to do that. We're going to, assess what we think we're going to sell. We know what we sell more of than other things. We're not just going to buy equipment to buy equipment, but if we've got tankless water heaters that are going to be having a price increase, we know about how many we sell a month. So we'll buy some, but we also have to have a warehouse to store it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nuts, and I don't think any.
The connectivity issues of the day.
Sorry, I lost you guys again. Anyway.
Yeah, it's all good.
I was saying with the price increase, the price increases.
Can you hear me now?
We should see how long we can sit in silence for with our infielder. So I think she's good and gone at this point. She might come back, on that. Now we got the spinning wheel. It's like the Xbox.
There we go.
When you have like the red wheel of death. Yeah.
Oh, she's back.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. So for those that are listening, we lost Heather temporarily. because her phone glitched out and she froze.
We'll fix that.
All right, carry on.
Unless she froze again.
Okay, so I don't remember where I left off, Pat. I don't know if we want to start with another question, or you were asking about how do we decide what we're going to order if we know price increase is coming. And I was just saying that, we assess what we use a lot of, we'll buy some of it. We don't have, tons of warehouse space to just buy everything, but it's not smart to do that either, because it's going to sit there. And if you're not going to move it, it's not worth putting the cash out there and spending the cash. But other ways that you can finance it if you don't have cash is if you can get a line of credit from your bank, or like we own the building that we operate out of. It's owned in a separate LLC, and we have a B lock that we could pull from if we ever needed to.
Right. Which is huge. I mean, if you can leverage that and you're going to sell it, I mean, buying that equipment ahead of time and then being able to sell it, or at least market at a higher price and then bring it down for certain clients or things like that. Like you can do specials. There's so much flexibility that you can do there. I know I've got a buddy that's a plumber. He just went out and bought 18 hot water tanks, and he's going to run specials throughout the month to get them sold. But the price was going up 30%. So he went and bought them all that he could. And he rented a storage locker because it was cheaper than paying the increase. So
we've done that.
Yeah. I mean,
innovative ways, right? Pivot
Yeah.
and innovate. We've chatted about that before. Is if you can pivot and innovate and find ways, and so you're like, okay, I'm having a 20% price increase, or in this case, the 30% price increase. We'll factor that in. Okay, if you can buy 50 units, is it cheaper to rent a storage space or a storage locker for the time that you have that on a temporary month-by-month basis, like that? If you don't have the warehouse space.
Yeah, and we actually have a storage unit right now. We did just lease out another office that will not be in lieu of, but will be in addition to the building that we already have, and we'll be moving part of our HVAC install department over there, so we'll have more room and we won't need the storage unit anymore. But we have storage unit right now.
And what you can do from that is actually set up another Google business profile, because you have another address where you're at, and you could maximize your marketing. Side note.
We have done that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got multiple locations that you're running already. We did just get this comment come in, which I want to ask a really great question on. They're looking for some nuggets, and they were in between calls, so they thought they'd hop on the live here. So my question for you, Heather, being the experience that you've had working with so many different contractors, crushing it with Sky and growing from where you have to where you're at now, multiple, got into the 8 figures now in terms of revenue. What have been some of the biggest lessons and setbacks that you've had along the way, or that you've gone through with Travis that you've had to learn from, and how did you pivot and get through those?
Well, probably the biggest learning nugget is we opened a third location in Central Oregon, and Travis moved down there in 2016, and we wanted to do $1 million in revenue the first year. We ended up doing $2 million from that location, and 2 years into it, we realized that the quality of employees that we could hire down there just wasn't there, and so we made the decision as a management team to shut it down, because it just wasn't profitable. And as much as we had tried to move into another market, and we were somewhat successful with it, it was they do business differently down there, and it just didn't mesh with the way that we do business. And so it was huge learning for the entire management team. Also, before Travis had moved down there, he was still wanting to make all of the decisions for the company. And when he moved down there, he left our management team in place to kind of start taking that over. So that was the best thing that came from that, is that when he took a step back and started letting the management team step up and make decisions, we grew more cohesive as a team and stronger as a team. So we were able to power forward. So at first, when that seemed like a failure, it was kind of one of those fail forward type things. We tried it didn't work, but like going back to pivoting, we said, hey, it didn't work. We're going to shut it down, and we're just going to move forward with what we know. And new construction is another thing. New construction, we joke now, is a race to the bottom. You can't make money. You don't get paid on time. half the time the contractor isn't scheduling you right. So you've got missed opportunity because you send a crew out there that's scheduled and the builder isn't ready. And so then you've got a crew that doesn't have work for the day and an opportunity with another customer that you couldn't have taken. So there's just a few couple little things there. And then, like I said, with 2020, we didn't hire when we should have because we were afraid of, getting shut down again and something getting worse and not knowing if we were going to have to lay people off. So we kind of pulled back on not wanting to hire, and it bit us in the ass.
3 massive nuggets. So take advantage of opportunities when they show up, even when they're disguised as failure. Love that in terms of COVID and being able to hire when other people are laying people off. The lesson of studying the market and knowing what markets you're willing to expand into. I know I've talked to a few people about wanting to get into another location that's an hour away, 2 hours away, trying to get across state and not understanding what it takes to really succeed within that market. So really studying the market and thinking that, it's some people have the attitude that the shit don't stink. So no, it is really important.
Well, we have a location that's about an hour and a half away, and it's only an hour and a half away, but it's a completely different way of life out there.
Yeah.
And it's a much smaller town, but usually we see higher ticket items out there. So you can't judge your market either. Studying the market and knowing the market is so important. But what do you think? Small town, no money. Well, it's actually the opposite out there. The average ticket out there is higher than you think it would be.
Totally.
Yeah, it's funny that just those drives, like I've been through that area in, south of Portland and Salem and, Bend and in all those places up along the coast. And like, it's almost like a time warp when you go from the valley across over to the beach. Like it's crazy, right? When you have that. Now, Evan, did you have one that you're going to ask kind of on that line? Cause I want to shift a little bit into, you sparked something in terms of, other locations and going off on that. You've also added on other services, right? So you guys started as heating and air, and now you have electrical, now you have plumbing, maybe not in that order. What are some of the financial considerations that one needs to consider before they add those extra services on?
You need to be really well in a good efficiency in the department that you're like. HVAC. We started with HVAC. We fine-tuned it and fine-tuned it and fine-tuned it. We finally shut new construction down in 2018, which I was so happy about because I hated it was never profitable. It's never going to be profitable. So just having a good manager in place and knowing that you've got one department running well, one department being HVAC, obviously it's retrofit and service. We added plumbing, and a learning curve for the plumbing is that it's not seasonal. HVAC is seasonal, so we plan for the seasonality. We know that we're going to turn market dollars up, in the slower what the trades call the shoulder season, and ways to get through that shoulder season where you stay busy and things like that. But with plumbing is more consistent, and actually electrical is as well, and so it's a different business model. So you've got to understand that just because it's still in the trades, it's a different business model. Because in HVAC, we plan for that seasonality, but with plumbing and electrical, you never know when an outlet's going to go out, a pipe's going to break, a toilet's going to leak. And so that's a big key factor in adding the additional trades. Now, we wouldn't have added electrical, I don't think, as fast as we did, but we were having a hard time getting electricians to do the disconnects for our HVAC. And so we added electrical far faster than I thought we were going to, and I'm glad that we did. But we added both plumbing and electrical within a year of each other, and that's tough to manage if you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah, that's intense, adding both at the same time. And I know even last week talking to Russell about it too, and when he added in HVAC for him, coming from plumbing, because he went plumbing, electrical, and then HVAC, and it was until he had the right people in place that he started to see the results start to trickle in. I'm curious, did you kind of find that as well with adding in the trades? Was it a people issue in adding those in?
It would have been, but we had the right people in place. I will say several years ago, one of our managers was far below par in what we would consider our signature standard of a manager and an employee. And so things did not run like they do now and like they have since we have the team in place that we have in place. And so, like I was talking about with field employees and getting their buy-in, the management team has complete buy-in into Sky. And so if we decide we're going to do something as a team, we don't let anything stop us.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. That's the hold my beer mentality.
It is.
Right?
It is the whole my beer mentality.
Watch me go. Well, let's talk a little bit with the hold my beer mentality. You know, I know for yourself, being in the industry for 23 years, it wasn't always easy for you being a female. And obviously there's I think that's wrong. It should have been not that way to start. So what are some things that you would say to females wanting to get into the trade?
Do it, especially now. Now it is so much more accepted than it was when I got into the trades. I had an uphill battle for sure, but I never saw it as anything more than a roadblock, and I just had to find a detour. It's tough. And also what I would say to a female getting into the trades, you better have a thick skin and you better not get offended very easily, because you won't last long.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even that they're giving you a hard time. It's just it is what it is, right? It's like swearing when you were before we got on the air. Even you've watched some of our guests and they're like, fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, fuck that, and you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna fucking swear. And we're like, cool, let's do it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of swearing in construction in the trades.
Yep.
There's a lot of inappropriate humor. It is what it is. You either embrace it or it's going to bug you. And so if there's females that want to get into the trades, do it. You'll never find more salt of the earth people who are willing to give you the shirt off your back. You're not going to get that in corporate America.
Nope. Sorry, I was reading Stacy's comments. So
yeah, it was too.
What did Stacy say?
I tell people it won't even really be the team that it is hard. It's the change and the pivoting and customers that can wear people down.
Yep.
Yeah. Very true. Very true, Stacy.
Yeah. Well, and someone who's got really thick skin and can take it and dish it out just as much as she can take it is Stacy. So she's phenomenal. She even swears when talking to the HR guy, Ian.
There you go. So the HR guy. So he's probably like earmuffs. I don't want to use that. You can't say that.
Actually,
no,
I
I'm
talked
kidding.
to Ian last night, and we were dropping F-bombs, and I love the HR guy.
We do too. We had him on, I want to say like February last year. And it was when you think HR, you're like, fuck, here we go. Going to be boring. But then you talk to him and like, no, he's not boring. So
he's no Toby.
You, HR, so no Toby.
Awesome. Well, as we start to wrap up here, Heather, we did want to make sure that we plug all of your information in here. So if you did want to find Heather, obviously skyheating.com, you can check out their website on there, see what they are all about. But if you want to get in touch with Heather directly, we've got facebook.com/hbargender, as in bartender, because she's dishing out the drinks for us today, or by email heather@skyheating.com. And of course, you can reach her by cell. Just don't put it in a bathroom stall somewhere in California. 503-407-5846. And Heather, I did want to talk a little bit about your consulting side. We've mentioned it a few times throughout the show, but I want to make sure that we give you a solid plug for this, because you're consulting for Dream Team, or you have consulted for Dream Team down in Louisiana. You've consulted for Next Gen with Ish down in California, as well as Victor and Absolute Airflow, and helping them getting their financials straight and helping them train their own CFOs. So just want to throw it to you so that you can give a solid plug for what it is that you do in your consulting business.
I will do whatever I can to help any trade-based business that wants help. Usually what I'll do is I'll ask for a set of financials and I'll kind of look them over. It gives me an idea of how well things are being taken care of. I'm always open for questions, emails. If somebody wants to run an idea by me, if somebody has a question about how they should do something, I have no problem answering and those kind of calls. I did do on-sites. We've been pretty busy here at Sky this year. We've grown a ton, but I do enjoy the on-sites if a company really needs help. Like that's what we did with Dream Team. I went down there with Trey and Bailey, and we were down there for 4 days or 5 days, but just working through and making sure everything was dialed in, getting their loan schedules set up appropriately so that they were amortized correctly, and their depreciation schedules, and showing them how to capitalize assets and depreciate them, and how that all works. So just shoot me an email or a text message or phone call and just say, hey, this is what I'm working on. I'm working with another contractor in Boston right now, just kind of trying to help mold some of the stuff that they're doing. I can usually point you in the right direction. I helped Stacy hire a CFO. Anything that, just run your idea by me. I will be honest and say, if you call me and ask me for something that I can't do or I don't have time to do, I'll let you know. But for the most part, it really is my passion. I love working in the trades and helping other companies be better.
Well, and she even admitted at the beginning of the show, the reason why she did go to work for Travis is because she has a really hard time saying no to contractors. So if you are having an issue, reach out to her, and she will do her best to try and help you out, because she's just a phenomenal human being. And even better if you get her a glass of wine, and then she will just go on and on and on, and you just sit back and take a ton of notes, because it is so good.
See if you can record the conversation so you can go back to it later.
Even better.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we did want to finish with our last question, and that is, what is one question you wished people would ask you more, but they don't?
I wish a question they'd ask me is to help them. I can help so much just by looking at a set of financials and asking. I have a list of 10 brief questions that I ask contractors, and I just wish more people would just say, I don't know what I don't know. I wish they would come to me and say that, because so many companies that I have ended up working with were afraid to ask me for help because they were afraid of looking stupid. And they didn't start their business because they were an accounting professional. They started their business because they were a technician or an installer or a plumber or an electrician. And, I wouldn't know how to install an air conditioner, and I work for an HVAC company. That's not my forte. So I think people are sometimes afraid to come to me and ask for help because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. And that's couldn't be further from the truth. I'm never going to judge anybody for what they don't know.
100%.
Well, you're more smart. You're a smarter person by saying, hey, I need help, and asking for it versus assuming that you know the answer and then finding out later that you don't, because other people are going to be like, well, why the fuck didn't the person just ask? Right.
That's my point with that, is because if you don't reach out and ask me the question, and you're too intimidated to ask the question, how much money are you losing?
Right. More smart. Yeah, I'm not smart today, Stacy. But
I caught it too. I was just like, I'm gonna let that one go.
Yeah, I'm under the weather today. It's just my brain isn't 100%. It's not firing on all
cylinders. You get a
pass. Which that happens, right? And part of it is just, it's raw and authentic and real. That's what we always say, right? But I had a grade 9 teacher that said there are no such things as stupid questions, just stupid people who don't ask questions. And that is stuck with me forever. You should just ask the question, right?
So let me ask you this really quick before we let you go then. So what would be one indicator that I should reach out to you because I don't know what I don't know?
If you're not making money, if you feel like you're losing money.
Yep. I love that.
If you think that you're making money, but you're not, or you think you're making money and you don't have any money in the bank.
That's the other one. I'm doing all this work. I'm working my bag off. I see the revenue coming in, but my bank account is still showing 0 at the end of the week. Reach out, ask for help, because it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't need to be that way, and it should never be that way.
I have one company, and I would never say the name on the air, but they reached out to me. Their payroll was running about $80,000 a month. They had a little over $100,000 in the bank and several $100,000 in loans.
Wow.
And they said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And those are tough conversations to have.
Mhm.
Totally. No, 100%. Again, if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know, and you need to reach out, and you need to connect with people that do know the answers and find help, right? Stacy added another one here for you. If you think you want to sell, reach out, because if you want to sell your business, yes, you need to make sure you have your financials in order beforehand, because you will end up getting more for your business, or at least be able to plan for the next year, 2 years, 3 years before you actually want to sell, and get your financials in order beforehand.
Because what they look at is EBITDA, and if you don't have any, you can't sell. There's nothing to sell, right? Like you don't have any profit, and that's what they're looking for.
Yep.
Well, I think a lot of contractors don't even realize what EBITDA is.
Nope.
So,
Do you want to share it with them?
That's how businesses sell. Earnings before interest, taxes, amortization, and depreciation. There you go.
There you go.
And if you want an easy way to figure that out, there's this great website. It gives you all the answers. google.com. If you type in how to figure out EBITDA in there, it will give you the answer.
And if you spell it wrong, it'll even correct it for you, for those that are not smart.
Get more smart like that.
Get more smart like me. All right. Well,
amazing.
I think it's been a slice.
Thank you guys so much. It's been fun.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks for coming on and chatting with us. And until next time, guys. Cheers. Thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, 2 quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing is, if you took one tiny bit of information out of the show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to share this. No matter what platform you're consuming this content on, hit the share button and introduce this show to others in your contacts list so they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.